The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Destiny. This is very dramatic title, where we will discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in this movie. And joining me today on the panel are Thomas Salerno. Hey, Thomas.
Hey there, Dom.
And Shelly Kelly. Hey, Shelly.
Hey, Dom.
Welcome back, Shelly, to the last of... you and I have done all of the Indiana Jones movies at this point, and this is the last one. I'm predicting
Supposedly.
it now. Supposedly.
Snatch that hat back.
Please let Harrison Ford retire. Poor guy. So before we get to our discussion, remember to like The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows on our Facebook page. We're at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. You can find us on Twitter, where we're at SQPN, and leave us comments wherever you'll find us online. You can follow the show, as in get every episode, in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, for a little while because Google Podcasts is going away. So be aware of that, folks. Spotify, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where you should make sure to hit that bell to get notifications of new episodes. And finally, write a review of the show. We really appreciate that at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from that allow it, and share the podcast with your friends. We really do appreciate that. And if I'm going to say this, I always say, like, I mention a podcast to recommend when I'm doing a podcast. This one I'm really recommending. If you like The Dial of Destiny, you will want to listen to Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, because this is right up that alley. You definitely want to get it. So check out Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World at mysterious.fm. That is another StarQuest show that you are sure to enjoy. So, all right, we are talking about, as I mentioned before, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, a.k.a. Indiana Jones 5, if you want to do the numbers. And this is a movie that came out in 2023. And just as we're recording this, you're getting this a little later than we're recording this, just out on Disney Plus. So if you're a Disney Plus subscriber, you can watch it there. Well, we are going to have a spoiled discussion. If you have not seen this movie, go see it, then come back and listen, unless you don't care about spoilers. But so I want to just quickly recap, though, we set the stage for what we are. The movie starts in 1944. Indiana Jones and his colleague, Basil Shaw, are captured by Nazis in Germany. The Nazis are evacuating from this castle in the Alps, and Indy and Basil are there to recover the Spear of Longinus. We will talk about that, or the Lance of Longinus, as they call it, but are captured. But meanwhile, there's a German astrophysicist, Wohler, who is there with the Nazis, and he says, forget the spear. This is what we really care about. And he brings out the Anchithera, which is the Dial of Destiny of the movie's title. And before the Nazis can do anything with it, Indy swoops in with Basil. They steal it. Boom. They get away. And then we switch to 1969. Yeah. The moon landing. And Indy is now elderly, retiring from teaching, until his goddaughter, Basil's daughter, shows up along with some Nazis in tow, including Wohler. And after the Dial of Destiny, they have to chase each other through some set pieces to pick up MacGuffins along the way till we get to the final bit where they travel back in time to the time of Archimedes. Like, it just got over the top here, where they defeat the Romans at the siege of Syracuse using a Nazi bomber. And then they come back where Indy heads into retirement, reunited with Marion again, and Helena goes off to more adventures, presumably. So it's about recap, so we'll get into the details as we go. Your overall impression, how does this stack up in your ranking of Indiana Jones movies? Thomas, I'll start with you. Where does this fit for you as among the movies?
Well, first off, it confirmed my theory that for the Indiana Jones movie, the rule is the opposite of the Star Trek original series movies, which is that the odd numbered ones are actually better instead of the even numbered ones like in Star Trek.
Right.
But yeah, I would rank this movie probably around either just under Last Crusade. I enjoyed it better than The Crystal Skull. And I'm really not a fan of Temple of Doom. To me, Temple of Doom seems like the odd one out for so many different reasons. But yeah, I enjoyed Dial of Destiny a lot. I'm glad I saw it. It felt like a return to form for Indiana Jones. And yeah, I just had a blast all the way through. I really enjoyed it.
How about you, Shelly? How does it fall in your rankings?
Actually, I hadn't thought of it until Tom was talking, and I agree with you entirely.
Which is your number one? I didn't ask you that, Thomas. What was your number one?
Oh, it's got to be Raiders.
Okay, so Raiders, then Last Crusade.
Then Last Crusade, then Dial of Destiny.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Shelly?
I'm not sure if I do Raiders, then Last Crusade, or Last Crusade, then Raiders. You'll have to go back and listen to all the previous episodes to hear where I ranked them in the past. So I don't want to misspeak there. I do agree that somewhere in the middle is really good with me for this one. The first time I saw this one in the theater, I was a little, I think I came in with expectations and I didn't expect to like it. And I let that taint the way I saw it. And having been a few months now watching it again, I enjoyed it so much more.
Okay.
Yeah, see, my expectations were rock bottom because I had seen so many people panning it that I was like, oh no. And I went in expecting a train wreck and was pleasantly surprised by just a really fun popcorn flick, which is what I wanted anyway.
So for me, the rankings are the Raiders number one, just because I was 12 years old when it came out. And it's just the perfect age for Raiders. Then Last Crusade, Sean Connery, just perfect. Then I would agree with you. Dial of Destiny. Then I might put the Indy 2 next and then Crystal Skull last. I don't know. There's a lot about Crystal Skull I didn't like.
So right in the middle for all of us then.
But
the top two we agree can be interchangeable, and the bottom two we agree can be interchangeable depending on the personality and the time of day.
Yes, but this movie is solidly right in the middle. It is not the best, but it certainly isn't among the worst, and it hits right in the middle. I think that's an interesting way to put it, but I would say that fits the way I see it. Definitely.
There were a lot of warm and fuzzy moments that were reminiscent of the first time we saw Indiana Jones. And I think that's what the writers and directors were going for in presenting this final chapter to us.
What makes a great Indiana Jones movie that this movie did? It's an interesting question I tried to pose to myself as we watch, but do you have any thoughts on that? I could throw out a couple things. One is, I think Indy is best when he's battling Nazis. That's the common denominator in the best of these. Oh, well, he was battling Nazis in Crystal Skull, but weird Nazi communists. It was weird. But like when he's up against the Third Reich, that's Indy's wheelhouse right there. So I that's one of them. But what do you think? What makes the better Indy movies better than the lesser ones?
I think they brought all the elements into this one that we like. And that is, like you mentioned, you started with that adventure sequence, and then you went into, there's this artifact that has to be found. And in this case, the artifact was an antiquity, but not necessarily related to a religious theme. And then the love interest. I hate to say that, but the family love interest that wasn't in your face with this one. I liked that. But then there's also this great adventure that he's having that he doesn't realize he's having, and that's his age. And the way they make his age a part of the adventure, or even tangentially a separate adventure, I think makes this really good.
Interesting. How about you, Thomas? What makes a great Indy movie?
I think a lot of the same things Shelly said. I really enjoy the caper aspect of Indiana Jones movies. I really enjoy the mystery of finding out like what this artifact actually does. Because like in the Indiana Jones universe, the artifacts are often similar, but also different from artifacts that we know in real life.
Right.
And I'm sure we'll get into that with the Antikythera mechanism. But and of course, like we said, I enjoy Indy when he's fighting Nazis, when he's fighting the Third Reich, because I am a history buff and I enjoy all that stuff. I enjoy those little references to the larger universe. Whenever Indy says that he did this in Budapest or wherever it is, just as a random example. Like I was there in 1936 or whatever. I'm like, oh, that's cool. They're referencing some other adventure that happened. And I know there's been expanded universe novels, which are hard to find these days. They're all out of print, sadly. But I just love that they can reference a larger universe without having to over-explain it.
Right.
And I think that adds verisimilitude, and I like that.
One of the things that I think makes a great Indy movie is the pacing. Mm-hmm. There are these action set pieces. You got to have that. That's one thing that makes an Indy movie is an action set piece with interludes, where moments where you can rest and a little downtime, and then Indy can interact with the people that he's with at that time, and you get a human moment, and then it's back chasing, and it moves from place to place. And we get that. We go from the French Alps to New York City to Morocco to the Aegean Sea. We travel with him. And that's, again, and I think another thing that makes a great Indy movie. And interestingly, that's one thing we didn't get in, say, the second movie, The Temple of Doom. He basically had a few places nearby, but it was all in India. It wasn't this grand adventure. And so I think it's one of those things and Indy just gets to, I feel like he's the original Jack Bauer in that Indy gets beat up along the way and keeps going. And I think that's another aspect of what makes Indy so great is he's the hero who he's not invincible and invulnerable. He's relentless and drags himself from one place to the next. And at 80 years old, it's even more dragging himself. So
he's a lot like Batman in that way, where at least Batman in his more modern incarnations, he gets beat up but he keeps on coming back.
That's right.
Only Indiana Jones can be shot in the upper left quadrant of his chest and then continue on to go through another 20 minutes of being dragged around or fight scenes or parachutes out of a plane. And you're like, how many lives is this guy? And I thought, well, maybe they're making it into a metaphor from, well, you thought the Indiana Jones franchise was done making movies, but we just keep on ticking and we just keep on going.
Just keep pumping them out. And then another thing is that lore. I think you referenced that a little bit, Thomas, but just the references to the fantastic stuff of our world, the stuff that's that it always touches on something beyond the norm and the natural. He's so down to earth, and yet even in this movie, he says, "I've seen things that are hard to believe," and he's seen what the Ark can do, the Ark of the Covenant. He's seen those stones in the Temple of Doom, and the guy Khalifa pulling the thing actually, or was that Star Trek in Amok Time? I don't know, but pulling the thing out of the chest.
He's met an immortal,
right?
In Last Crusade, an immortal person,
right? Mm-hmm. And the cup of Christ, and the
drinking the blood of Kali.
Yeah, right. He threw the ring into the cracks of doom. No, that was something else. So in that case, that's another aspect of what makes Indiana Jones a great Indiana Jones movie. So,
and one other thing, a strong villain. There needs to be a strong villain, and they nailed it with Mads Mikkelsen here. If you had asked me before this movie came out, who would you want as an Indy villain? He would have been on my short list.
Yeah.
Because I loved him in Casino Royale as the bad guy, as Le Chiffre. Bad guy in that.
Oh, and
he does such a great job as a Voller, Herr Voller, this unreconstructed Nazi and I love that I don't know if they mention it by name, but he's basically brought over in Operation Paperclip.
Yes.
So there's that historical aspect. Again, he's brought over to work at NASA and all that stuff. And
he's essentially supposed to be an analog to Von Braun, Werner von Braun.
I hated that.
Hated that they made him equated it. Yes.
Yes, because I like Dr. Von Braun. But when anyone tainting all the nuance and context of who people were in that time period and how allegiances had to be shifted. But
but I feel like there must have been some people like him who were like, both in Germany and the United States, who were just unreconstructed and just completely
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
and when they say that to him, when Indy says, "Are you still a Nazi?" and Helena looks shocked, and I remember thinking that how hard that must have been post World War II, even up to the 1960s and early 70s, that there was this conflict still in the culture for people that age.
Yes. Well, I was thinking about that it was that great scene in the hotel in New York City where Voller is with his new name. I forget what it is.
Schmidt.
Schmidt, right.
Schmidt.
Schmidt, such a good German name.
Or Schmidt of Alabama University.
The black waiter in the hotel brings in the tray, and Voller is, oh, did you fight in the war? Because this man was the right age, and grinding his nose in it like, you're just a waiter in this hotel. And kudos to them, they don't bring it up, but there's the race issue as well. He's black, working a semi-menial jobs of serving people, being ordered around by these guys, and he is grinding his nose in it. And I, the former Nazi, is the very important person, the advisor to the president, and I can tell the president to wait on me because I'm so important. And it's, you just wanted to punch him in that smug Nazi face.
And when he said the Allies didn't win, we lost.
And that's an interesting perspective given what he's trying to do, which is, and I think it's fascinating. It's not that he wants Hitler to win, because he knows Hitler was the crazy madman who lost the war. The fact is, they could have won. the Nazi, if it wasn't for Hitler, the Nazis could have won World War II. And, someone with Voller's knowledge, if he were to go back and convince people that he knew what to do, that really could have changed the course of world history. The Nazis could have won.
I think what's ironic, too, is that in real life, one of the reasons that the Nazis did lose is that they were wasting so much money and resources on crazy ventures to try and find artifacts that would win them the war, like Das Ahnenerbe, their archaeological division, and all this stuff. Instead of building newer and better weapons and having better strategy, they're wasting all these resources on wild goose chases.
That's an aspect of the Indiana Jones story that I don't know that people realize. This is actually what happened. Hitler did send out people to go find these artifacts because he was crazy for supernatural stuff and thought these things would help him. And that's the fascinating thing is, in fact, there wasn't just artifacts, but also art, as we recently had when we discussed the sequence of the movie The Monuments Men. The Nazis were looting art as well. So let's talk about some of these artifacts. The first artifact that gets mentioned is the Lance of Longinus, or the Spear of Longinus, that these Nazis have. And that spear, in case people don't know, Longinus is reputed to be the Roman soldier at the foot of the cross where Christ was crucified. And his spear was the one that pierced the side of Christ, from which flowed blood and water. And that spear head became a relic, of course, but it's not in some French castle. It's actually, we know where it is. It's in St. Peter's. There's a reliquary in St. Peter's that has the spearhead of Longinus in it. It's one of those great relics recovered, I think, by St. Helena, the mother of Constantine.
That's ironic, because the character is named Helena.
That's true.
Indy's goddaughter.
Yeah. Well, and it also ties The Last Crusade into this new movie by starting with that, because I know we all speculated that the lance would be the artifact that to go after in this film. And so leading off with that, the lance pierced the side, the blood and water. There's the image that was in Dr. Jones's of the cup of Christ, the Holy Grail, capturing the blood and water flowing into it. And that's shown pretty well in the New York apartment is when they show it, but it's something from The Last Crusade. So it ties the movies together in terms of making a nod to that spiritual connection.
Right.
And there has to be in the beginning of every Indy movie a red herring artifact. In the first sequence, there's always that. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, he had the same thing with the very first one. It wasn't so much a red herring as it just got taken away. Like he couldn't keep it.
But this one was a fake.
But this was a fake. It's a fake.
That was a new twist. I enjoyed that.
Star Trek reference. Yes. And I love the fact that some of us would say before this movie came out, the best Indiana Jones movies are the ones where Indy is recovering artifacts related to Judeo-Christian faith, the Ark, the Cup of Christ. And so to have the lance be the thing that they start with, it's another artifact connected to Christ, it's almost James Mangold, the director, saying, we're still one of those movies. Even if it's not the main artifact, we're still connected to those movies, which, hey, maybe that's how it worked out. Maybe is why it was good. I don't know. But yeah, so the lance is, it turns out, and Voller is the one who calls it. He says, oh, no, it's fake. And I forget, it's like the metal is too new and whatever. But it was interesting. But it's the Antikythera that was among the artifacts that he's really interested in. And he names it as, he says, it's Archimedes' dial. It's said to have these properties. It's only half of it, and the other half has been lost. So at this point, when you mentioned, the Antikythera is a real archaeological relic. We know where it is. It's in the museum in Athens. It's in the National Museum of Athens. And it's not, I hate to say it, it's not really even connected to Archimedes. They're not quite sure who made it, but it was recovered in a shipwreck. It doesn't look like it does in the movie. It's corroded bronze. It looks like it was under the ocean for 2,000 years, but it's a hand-powered orrery, which is a model of the solar system. And it was used to project astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance. Like they could predict out these things. And so it is a fascinating, mysterious object in and of itself. In fact, like they're not quite sure. Like it is well advanced of most of the technology that we would have thought they had at the time it was found, which was time it was made, which they think was about 87 BC.
Oh,
when it was made.
Okay.
So
it's over 2,000 years old. Wow.
It is. Yeah. So, yeah, but the rest of the story is entirely made up. The old Dial of Destiny Archimedes thing. So you just got to accept that and move on.
Two things come to mind as you're talking about this. One is that the dial in the movie is about the same age relatively as the earlier spiritual, the Cup of Christ and the lance and the Ark of the Covenant is actually much, much older. Sorry.
That's about 1,000 years older than that. But yeah.
But they're still in that same time period, the same eras. And then the second one is that this one is not supernatural. And maybe that's why Hitler wasn't looking for it in the movie when this is not what he's wanting. Don't come to me with this. Dr. Voller says its power is not supernatural, it's mathematics. And so it's much more tangible. And the travel through time wasn't so much supernatural as it was physics and math and an aligning of something they discovered scientifically.
Right. Yeah, they don't call it, but it's like a wormhole, perhaps, or something along those lines. They don't call it a wormhole.
A fissure. I think they called it a fissure.
Yeah. I wonder if wormhole was a thing in 1969 yet, if they'd even called them wormholes yet. But yeah, it's essentially that idea. It's a scientific phenomenon, not a spiritual phenomenon that's going on in here. Yeah. One of the things I want to point about the fight on the train is we do get the Wilhelm scream right off the bat.
Yes.
When he throws one of the Nazis off the train.
Yeah.
Got to have the Wilhelm scream.
That whole sequence for me was worth the price of admission to see this movie. Like as soon as they started everything, like in the beginning, Indy's captured, they're interrogating him. He gets on the train. I was like, this is it. I'm like, yes, I knew I was going to love this movie from the opening bits. You know? Right
from them hanging him up, like putting a noose on him and him having to escape from it and then almost getting hung like again twice as the building was burning around them. The bomb coming through the roof and hitting the floor and going through, just all of that was great. And then let's talk about the de-aging, because that's a big thing.
They have perfected that, I think. That looked seamless.
Compared to, say, Rogue One a few years ago when we had Leia, well, she wasn't de-aging, but there were fake faces. But in this case, I have to feel like it wasn't just de-aging. They had to have at times put the face of young Harrison Ford on stunt doubles. I really feel like that has to have happened in some of these, because there's no way Harrison Ford was throwing himself around like some of these instances and getting punched and that sort of thing. What did you think?
So I actually got this on Amazon and it had bonus content, and I was watching the bit about the de-aging process, and it shows Harrison Ford current age. And they've put like little dots on his face. They almost look like freckles. And then they have him in the costume going about doing everything. And they show how they have taken every single image that they have filmed of him when he was about that age. He's supposed to be 37 in this. And I guess it's like a version of AI because they have blended it all together and then overlaid it. And they showed it side by side. It was scary. And they did also show the stunt doubles. And I don't remember seeing them with the dots on their face, but a lot of the scenes they were showing were the action scenes. So a lot of it was from behind. And regarding the noose that you mentioned being hung, the first thing that came to mind was, are you kidding me? And the second thing was, oh, it's like the refrigerator in the nuclear blast.
Yeah, right. That's not quite as bad.
How many times do we think he's going to be dead, but he's not?
Yes. How many times does an bomb explode near him, but doesn't disintegrate him, blow him to bits? That was a big bomb. That was no small bomb.
Or lose his hearing or have concussive blasts on his internal organs. It's a fun movie.
There's always that humor as well. And like when he gets in the car, punches the driver, gets in the car, and then the Nazis get in the back seat with him.
Right.
And suddenly he doesn't know German. Did he ever know German?
I don't know if he ever knew German. That's the funny thing is, but he fakes his way through it. There are things like when he's in the movie physics, when he's in the motorcycle and the sidecar, he shears off the sidecar by hitting a tree. The motorcycle would collapse around the tree in real life. Like it wouldn't just shear it off and keep going. But it's movie physics, it's cartoon physics, and it doesn't have to be believable because it's not the genre that this movie is. This is fun. And it's funny to see like how we accept it, but in other places we wouldn't. But Indiana Jones, we accept it because it's part of the milieu. It's part of the universe of Indiana Jones. So it's fine. So let's skip forward then to the July 1969. It's Moon Day. We have a bit of a jump here because we start with him on the day they land on the moon. And then we have the parade in New York City, which is, so there was this weird.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because the party, wasn't the party for it wasn't?
No, Moon Day was the day of the parade. It was the ticker tape parade in New York City.
Okay.
So
the party was for him retiring.
No, the party, I'm sorry, the party of his neighbor who woke him up that he went there with the bat as the cranky old man. And
he says it's Moon Day, but it's the ticker tape parade day. It's the day they brought the astronauts through New York City. So that's what he meant. Everything stopped. It was huge. There was like millions of people there. It was.
Yeah. That was fun. I like that they incorporated that. And I feel like it gives this idea that the astronauts superseding his class, like his people are just not into his class. Everyone wants to go somewhere else. Like the astronauts parade superseding the interest in his class is symbolic of the changing of the era. We're moving from the era of the swashbuckling archaeologist in a leather coat to the modern space age. And it's what they tried to do in Crystal Skull, less successfully. But here, I think they accomplished that.
Yeah. And they changed the lighting. I don't know if you caught that when they were doing all of the Nazi scenes and you missed some of those great lines, too many Nazis. He meant that reference so many times. We're running towards the gun. No, we're running away from the Nazis.
Yeah, that's right. That was on the train. Yeah.
Everything was very muted and gray, almost black and white, except for that red swastika. And then the minute they switched to 1969, it's very vibrant. It's almost in your face. Everything is very tinged red, white, and blue. And it's a whole different feel. And so they really showed you that it's changed. Indy is a man of the past. He is not a man of the future, and the future that we, who are not old enough to remember that parade because we weren't born yet, but he's not a part of that future. And that's a huge shift for him.
Yeah, even the color of the light, it's very golden, and it's August 1969 probably, or maybe it was, I forget when the parade was, but maybe September. He's retiring, which is weird. He wouldn't retire at the beginning or middle of a semester, so it has to be like the end of the summer session. That was my mental canon there. But yeah, it was very golden, like a golden age, where it was the fight against Nazis was at night and it was dark, but it was, like you say, it was war. So it was a very different time. So yeah, I see that. We do find out
August 13th.
August 13th. Thank you. Ooh, August 13th. That is a good day. That is my anniversary.
August 13th.
Yeah. Yes. So we.
Oh, and I wanted to mention the college he teaches at.
Hunter.
Yeah. I almost went there.
Awesome.
I almost did when I was thinking about doing my master's in anthropology, because they have an anthropology program. It's part of a bunch of universities around New York City have pooled their anthro departments and have this big over department kind of thing. But I almost went to Hunter College. I was thinking of applying there. So when I saw it in the movie, I was like, oh, that's a nice personal connection.
And it makes you wonder why he's at Hunter College, because he was not there before the Crystal Skull. So I think they said he'd been with them a little over a decade. And this is 12 years after the events of Crystal Skull. It's 12 years after he and Marion got married, 12 years after he learned about his son. And so maybe that they came together as a family in New York City and he had to find another job.
Yeah, I was wondering, maybe he just got fired from the college after the race through the college against the Nazis. Crystal Skull.
And he was accused of being a communist.
Yeah. It was like Yale, but not Yale. Like they didn't actually come out and say it was Yale, but it was understood, I think, at the time. So speaking of Marion, we find out in the apartment he's got divorce papers. So they're getting divorced again, apparently. But this time is because his son, Mutt, played by Shia LaBeouf in Crystal Skull, has died in the war, presumably Vietnam, I would say.
Yeah.
And what does he say to Helena? Marion, it just broke Marion or something like that, and he couldn't help her. Like he didn't have the wherewithal to be there for her in that moment. She just couldn't. She couldn't have him there in her grief, and that's what split them up. But you could tell he's not wanting it. Like it's a huge regret for him. He's not wanting this divorce early on. We don't find out about Mutt until much later. But,
actually, if you're really sharp-eyed, you can figure it out pretty early.
Yeah.
In the apartment?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's I think the telegram you get when child dies in the war. I think they show the telegram. Well, it's the
folded flag.
Oh, that too.
Oh, the folded flag.
The very first thing that my son actually picks it up really fast. He's, who died? That was the first thing he said. He saw the flag and said, who died? So when they pan that apartment from the window, that's when you see it. You see the Ballantine whiskey boxes.
Yep.
And the bottles are sitting up there. And there's that shelf and there's a folded flag. And then it's like a shrine. There's a picture of Mutt in uniform and maybe a Marine. I couldn't quite tell. And then there's a picture of his father, Dr. Jones.
I remember the picture of his dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think they say later that Mutt went to Vietnam because he thought it's what his father expected of him. And that kind of drove him and Marion apart.
Somebody mentioned it there. Oh, when Dr. Voller's going to Morocco in the plane, there's a in the hotel, there's a TV in the background. And on the TV, reporter is talking about it. Dr. Henry Jones, wanted for this incident that happened at the college, recently lost his son and was in the middle of a divorce.
Oh,
If you listen for that, you'll catch that. It's said very early. But yes, and then he says the grief overwhelmed her and he couldn't do anything for it.
Right.
And the separation papers are dated June 26, 1969.
Right. So he's had them for almost 2 months and hasn't progressed from there. But do at the end get that reunion? And what a wonderful reunion. Another callback to the original movie, that scene when they're on the boat, where doesn't it hurt? But the tables have turned, because for her, the hurt isn't physical, it's emotional and spiritual, and kisses her and they reunite, shall we say, including the hat out on the...
It's like a man.
Just like a man. Yes.
Because that was such a huge point, that ending. We have to come back and talk about the ending, because either now or later, I don't care. But it was the humanistic side of this movie beyond just the great adventure, was that reuniting, that here's Indiana and he's old and the world has forgotten him. His students are no longer interested. They don't believe in heroes anymore. And he really has nothing. He's retiring and there's nothing to live for almost.
Right.
And then boom, Helena comes in and they get swept off and he's almost angry about having to go. As much as Saul is like, oh, Indy, I want to go with you. Let me go. I miss the desert. I miss the ocean. I miss the adventure. And I think that's all of us saying we miss that. We miss Indiana Jones. And she left because he wasn't there anymore in their grief. More divorces happen after the death of a child. But when they come back, he doesn't want to come back from
Syracuse.
Yeah. And I wanted him to stay in Syracuse. To be honest, the first time I saw it, that's we'll get there. That's my favorite part is Syracuse. But then she goes, what am I back for? And then it began and ended with a spear. There's a spear on the table sitting right next to his bed when they look back at, and she comes in and everybody else leaves the room and Marion's looking at him. And it's just the most tender moment that they end with. Everything hurts. I know how that feels. And they reconnect. And you're just like, oh my gosh. It's the first Indiana Jones movie that left me with tears in my eyes.
Everything
good ones.
From the beginning to the end with Indiana Jones, from the first movie to this one, is connected with it's that relationship between Indy and Marion and the turbulence in that relationship. And like what starts with like when Raiders starts, they have had a bad breakup. They have a bad past. But yet they are there for each other throughout, despite on the highs and lows. And in the end, Indy's destiny is not the Encanthera, it is Marion in the end. That is who he's supposed to be with. And I agree. I think that is a
great
wonderful
love
moment.
Story.
Yeah. And I love the fact that Karen Allen is there is there. And she looks like she has aged just like Harrison Ford did. And she looks natural. She looks beautiful. She's a beautiful woman in her got to be 70s at least. But she looks like herself, like she should. And he does. And they're this older couple at the end of their lives who are together again as they should be. And that's what we want from Indiana Jones, is to end up as he should be, the way with a happy ending in that sense.
And she says,
I agree.
She says, are you back?
Right.
And I don't think she meant, are you physically returned into the apartment? I think, are you back? Are you the soul of what makes you Indiana Jones? Are you back?
Right. Right. That's what she left, was the man who had been broken. The Indiana Jones that she fell in love with had gone, but he's returned. Yeah, you mentioned Sala. That was a great moment between Sala and Indy. I love seeing John Rhys Davies back, just in general. But Indy replies to him, this is not an adventure, Sala. Those days have come and gone. And Sala is always wise. Sala says, perhaps not. It's like some of those days have gone, but there's one last adventure to be had here. And that's where they go.
Give them hell, Indiana Jones. I was on the verge of clapping in the theater when he said that.
That was great. So let's talk about Helena here, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. She's the daughter of Basil Shaw, who was driven crazy by his obsession with the Encanthera. And Indy tried to help him by removing it from him. And it's fascinating because Indy himself could have been that obsessed with an artifact. Indy has encountered artifacts that were that powerful before. And yeah, it's fascinating to see him, and that he's her godfather, that he's apparently lost touch with her. And he can identify with her because his father had an obsession with an artifact. And so he thinks she's chasing after it like he would have, when it turns out that her motives are not pure by any means. They're not. Indy is a grave robber. He's not a true archaeologist, but he always wants to put the things in museums. Whereas she is much more like Belloc in one sense. She's in it for the profit, which is fascinating.
In a way, she reminds you of Indiana Jones in the movie we never want to talk about, in the Temple of Doom. She's after fortune and glory.
Yeah.
Everything is, and they keep saying that, to the victor go the spoils.
Right.
So, but that's what she reminded me of, was the young Indiana Jones who's chasing things in the Temple of Doom.
Right, right.
And I love the way they made the reference to it. It was like the tables were flipped when she's after it. And he says, why are you chasing the thing that drove your father crazy? And her only retort is, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would. He did.
He did.
He did. Right. He went with him.
And we should mention that at this point, they only have one half of the device.
Right.
The Antikythera mechanism is in two parts.
And to find the second half, they have to find another MacGuffin called the Graphicos. This got very close to being convoluted. Let me put it that way, to being a little too convoluted. But it's like a video game. There are levels and bosses each level you have to defeat. So they have to do this puzzle, then get to the next puzzle, so they can get to the final puzzle.
National treasure.
Yeah, exactly. It's a formula and it works.
At one point, they are in basically a literal Zelda dungeon going through the puzzle.
I don't want to forget to mention some of my favorite lines from the movie. There's some really fun stuff in here. In Morocco, when Indy sees Schmidt Voller again after he got knocked off the train, he says, "Oh, your face rings a bell." Which, his face got his bell rung. "You should have stayed in New York," Voller says to him. "You should have stayed out of Poland." Great line.
That was great. I love that.
That was fantastic. And then the third burn was on the plane. Voller says, "Buckle up, Dr. Jones. There might be some turbulence." And Jones says, "You're German, Voller. Don't try and be funny."
Oh, that was brilliant. I was like, what?
3 great burns by Indy against Voller. It was awesome.
There's another cool exchange when he says, "You stole it. I stole it. Then you stole it." And she says, "Then I stole it. It's capitalism, guys."
Right. And we have these multiple groups of people that we're battling here. We have the CIA, who's for some reason are working with the Nazis.
I thought that was such a weird thing because
it was another MacGuffin.
Yeah, and those characters did nothing to advance the plot. The female agent is killed off, and I in the theater I was thinking there, I'm like, you did precisely nothing to advance the movie. Like they could have cut that part with the CIA out, and it wouldn't have affected anything.
Were they trying to establish that Dr. Voller was previously a Nazi and now was such a trusted member of the United States scientific community that they were giving him this level of protection or of interest in helping him to recover something?
That was the weakest part, I think, was what was the CIA's interest in all of this? Why was the CIA helping Voller find this artifact? I mean, you're right. Like it was like you said, Shelly, is it because he created the U.S. space program? Now we give him anything he wants on a silver platter?
But then they cut him off later, and there's a warrant for his arrest or something.
Yeah.
Oh, but Helena had been arrested in Tangiers for selling contraband, antiquities, trafficked goods, whatever. Maybe it was related in some way to that because they were looking for Helena, weren't they? Not Dr. Jones. They were after her.
They were following her.
She's this international, she's with the drug
gangster.
lord. Yes. Yeah. So she's with the son of the Moroccan guy. So maybe it's more tied into that. It just wasn't well explained, or we didn't care as much as they wanted us to.
Yeah. Because Voller's objective for following Helena was because Basil was the last one known to have the Antikythera piece. And so that's why they were following her, because they knew she was trying to find it. But what was the CIA looking for? That was the one thing that I didn't understand. Is one of the things that occurred to me at the time, and we said this at the beginning, are they setting up Helena to be the next Indiana Jones? I just don't feel like this isn't a male-female thing anyway, but it's really, I just don't feel like the character has enough there to carry an Indiana Jones type movie. Not like Lara Croft on the Tomb Raiders, that sort of thing. I just don't feel like this character can carry it. I've seen speculation that's what it was, but I don't see it.
There was speculation about Mutt too when the 4th movie came out.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that vibe when I watched Dial of Destiny. I didn't get the vibe that they were setting her up as a successor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, the first time I saw the movie, I did get that vibe that they were trying to replace him with her. She would be, in Mutt's absence, she would become the new future Indiana Jones. But the second time I watched it, I liked her better. The first time I didn't like her character at all. I found it grating on me. She was just so consistently, she played the character so consistently. But then after watching it the second time, I thought, no, okay, this is pulling that element of family through again. And she has, I forget the kid's name already. I'm sorry. Teddy, thank you. She has Teddy, which gave you the whole vibe of Shorty, Short Round.
Yeah.
Yes. Not as good, though, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what made me then realize she's acting like him in Temple of Doom with the Fortune and Glory. And she just took another step.
Nice callback, actually, for them to establish that kind of relationship.
Yeah, I've always said that if they want to do more Indiana Jones movies, and maybe they just let it die, but they should reboot with a new actor. I just feel like instead of dragging poor Harrison Ford out again, go back and tell the old stories, the ones that you referenced, Thomas, like those stories from the 30s, all those adventures he had. There's plenty of fodder for movies there if you wanted to do that. I don't even know if we want them to do that. It would have to be the right actor, the right scripts, that's for sure.
They also had Helena go through a transformation. If you see her in the beginning, she's very rough around the edges. She's very sharp. She's punchy. And then there's this flashback where you see her as a young girl, maybe 12, 13 years old. She's very soft. And the little picture of her is very soft. When you get to the end and they're back at the apartment after Syracuse, she looks soft again. Her hair is done real softly. Her makeup, everything is soft and rounded about her instead of being sharp and edgy. And so I just saw that there was that transformation having gone through this experience.
That's a good catch because, she does change throughout this, and it's both they accentuate it with the visual. But in that last moment, she has that decision to go back for Indy after he's been shot in the Tomb of Archimedes or to escape with Teddy. And that's that moment where the switch flips, where she decides, no, I'm going to go back for him. I'm no longer out for just myself. So, yes, this Indiana Jones always has this moment of decision in it. The movie always has it, where I have to decide whether to take the fame and power or save a person. And I think Indy faces this in this one, but Helena faces this in this one too. This moral choice. Do I take the thing that elevates me, that would set me up for life, or do I go give that up for the person? And we saw that in Last Crusade. We saw that in Raiders. In the best of these movies, and I think in all the movies, we get that choice from him. And it's always the choice for a person, to save a person, to die to self, in that, if we want to use that language. We also get another famous actor in this movie. We get Antonio Banderas playing Ronaldo, the Spanish diver.
Oh, he was great. I was sad that character got killed off.
I was like, wait, was Antonio Banderas in another movie? It's fascinating to have him show up as such a big actor in such a small role in this movie, but I suppose it's an Indiana Jones movie.
I like instead of snakes, there's eels when they go down to the
waters.
Snakes in water.
Snakes in the water. And you can tell Indy is making that connection in his head. Like, eels are snakes in the water. He's not liking it. And it's pre-scuba, by the way.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Jacques Cousteau invented the scuba, the self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, but this is still tubes to the surface that have to be pumped. So, yeah.
I'm shocked they didn't I'm shocked they didn't go for electric eels.
Yeah, right. That would have been even better in that case.
Would have been electrifying.
What is it he says at one point? Indy says to Helena, I've come to believe it's not so much what you believe, but how hard you believe it. He says to her, as he's trying to convince her that there's something here. He says, I don't believe in magic, but I've seen things. And you could see that Indy is he's experienced stuff that you can't deny. And he's so obstinate that he won't just believe, but you get the sense that it's in there, that there's that kernel of, I believe in this higher power. I believe in that God exists and that he has power in this world, and that Nazis are evil and opposed to him, and he doesn't like them, which he saw firsthand, how the wrath of God against Nazis several times. And it's interesting. It's an interesting moment of where he's imparting this wisdom to Helena. You've got to believe in something beyond yourself. You've got to be more than the stuff you can acquire and the power you can acquire and the fame you can have. You've got to have more than that. And that was, to me, that's the pivotal moment, that central point in this movie that the movie kind of rotates around. And I really liked him saying that at that moment.
I wonder if they brought in Antonio Banderas' character so that they could have a death right there. And to have it be one of Indy's good close friends that we aren't already emotionally attached to through the franchise. Because I was thinking death is final. And if anything, we're looking at old Harrison Ford. He is old. And this character cannot live forever. But we don't want to see Indiana die on screen. We don't want to see Sala die on screen. We don't want to lose Marion. We've had Mutt, but that's more of the passage of time and how everything's catching up with Indiana. So I was wondering if having his friend killed here is that facing that final moment.
It's interesting, right? And by having a big actor that we recognize, he's not just a background stranger, right? So we have an emotional connection to him already, just because, hey, it's Antonio Banderas, and to have him die on screen there gives us a bit of that taste of the loss of, we know that this is a big death. If they're going to kill a big actor on screen, that's a big death. So I think you're right. It's that making it present, that mortality. And Indy gets to say to Helena, hey, you're all excited. My friend just died. And to bring her back down again and to give her the stakes. This isn't just a game. There are real lives at stake. Indy is grounded, very grounded in this moment.
They also use Rennie as that character where Indy confides in him what's happened. Why would you want to go back in time? How does he phrase it? What would you do if you could go back in time? Right. And that's where we learn. He says, I'd stop my son from enlisting and I'd tell him how he's going to die, or I'll tell him he's going to die. And so they can allow these two men to be vulnerable in their sharing of information there. Yeah.
Really nice moment. So after they recover the Graphicos, they know they need to go find the tomb of Archimedes in Sicily. So they go to the cave of Dionysius. Real place. In fact, if you go to Wikipedia, some of the images, some of the photos of the cave are actually the exact framing from the shots of the movie. Mangold must have said that shot and that shot. I think he really is emphasizing this is a real place. And it works like this, where it's said to have these properties of perfect echo and that sort of thing. There's a couple of fun bits about it there.
There's no tomb in it, though. There's no tomb of Archimedes in it.
No, it's not there. They did film in it, yeah.
They did film on location. That thing's important because nowadays everything is so CGI'd and done in studio. But they actually went and filmed in Syracuse, and then I think they call it the Ear of Dionysus.
Right. Yes, the ear. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has that, what is it? It's 23 meters high, extends 65 meters back. It bends in approximately S-shaped, and they said it does have these interesting properties of the way the sound moves in it, but it was the Romans carved it for water storage, they said. So it's nothing fantastic. Another callback. So in Syracuse, we have Teddy getting captured. He had to be. That's just that sort of thing. Villains in these movies, no matter how far ahead Indy ever gets, they always catch up to him. He hasn't leave them clues, but they somehow seem to find him. He's going west, therefore he must be going to Sicily and the cave of Dionysius. Sure, why not? But they show up there and Teddy stumbles into them. He gets captured.
And there's like a procession going by. Do you know that? There's a religious procession. Yeah.
Yeah, a saint or a Marian feast. I forget exactly what it was, because it's Sicily. If it's The Godfather or Indiana Jones, you have to have religious processions to tell you it's Sicily.
It's Sicily, yeah.
There was every Indiana Jones movie has to have one really gross scene. And this was a callback to the Temple of Doom, the crawling through the bugs. Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. Not as bad as Temple of Doom. Temple of Doom was grosser. This totally had the big giant centipedes and I'm not sure those are actually native to Sicily.
But they are native to Indiana Jones.
Yeah, they are. Just like the ants in the fourth movie are not native to South America, and right in there anyway. I
was wondering if they brought back all of the creatures.
Yeah. I kept wondering. Okay, every Indiana Jones movie has the one big henchman. Right?
Yes.
And he's got to die in some spectacular fashion. Like in Raiders, where the big guy gets killed by the propeller of the plane.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Right. That's Raiders.
That was Raiders. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm like, when is this big linebacker looking guy gonna get his, and he ends up drowning, and he does that thing that people who drowning in movies do where they scream. And I'm like, don't do that. You're letting out all the oxygen in your lungs.
Yes, just accelerating the process. Yeah.
But he was also, but I guess he was also handcuffed to those bars, so he knew he wasn't going anywhere.
Right. Although those bars were pretty rusted. If he'd worked at it, he might have broken them. He's just a dumb Nazi and drowned himself. That's why they lost the war. The tomb has a puzzle to get into it. I liked the Athena puzzle. That was fun. The idea that, something leads to wisdom. What was it? Or I forget what exactly the puzzle was now, the line. But I did like that, getting into the tomb. And it was interesting how it was like Archimedes, they found Archimedes' body and they found on him a watch. And on the tomb were propellers. And they're like, oh, it means he did travel to the future. And then we find out later, no, that's Voller's watch. Or no, it was the pilot's watch. I forget whose watch it was. The pilot's watch. And there was the plane, Voller's plane, the propellers from that. He never traveled forward. And so I really liked that little bit of misdirection. And just the whole idea that Archimedes didn't invent the Antikythera to time travel. He did it to bring help from the future in defeating the Romans at the siege. And it was a one-way, one-time device. It only ever went one place. What'd you think of that as a device here? We'll come back to some of this stuff we're skipping over a bit, but I want to talk about that now that we're talking about the tomb. What did you think about that?
As a twist, I liked it, because I believed them at first. I was like, oh, cool, Archimedes traveled to the future, but then they completely turn it on its head, and it's, no, he's calling for aid. I liked that. I thought that was interesting, and it led to such a very interesting climax that completely, at first I thought they were jumping the shark a bit, but it led to such a great final scene that in the end I accepted it. It's just, I liked that a lot.
How about you, Shelly? Yeah.
The only thing for me that doesn't quite jive is they made a big deal out of Dr. Voller trying to go back to that date in 1939, and then Indiana saying you didn't account for continental drift, meaning continental drift was something no one had known at that time, blah, blah, blah. But apparently Archimedes must have, because he actually did get it right back to where Archimedes wanted it if he was calling help from the future for that siege.
That's right. So. It also points to the fact that time travel, you can't change history. You can't change destiny, because all of this already happened and is happening again. There isn't like this idea that you can't go back and you can't change history because it's already done. And that all depends on your theory of time travel. And then in this instance, in this universe, you can't change time. And so there's this idea that it was Indy's destiny to always go back and then come back. Like this, all of this is Indy's destiny. I feel like there's that's one of the messages of the movie is this has always been the way Indy is meant to go, and not to go out in the grand blaze of glory in Syracuse, but to go and come back and be with Marion. That's his destiny, is to come back and be with Marion.
Because he's such a grounded character. He's more of an everyman than a lot of other action heroes are.
Yes.
He's not a superhero. He's just a guy. He's very smart. He has a lot of skills. But in the end, he's immortal. He's as mortal as the next guy.
Right. Apart from the getting shot thing.
Apart from getting shot, yeah. He has plot armor, but he's still mortal.
Yes, that's true. As always in these movies, the bad guy does get the device, whatever it is, the artifact, and uses it, whether it was Raiders with the Ark or the Cup of Christ and what's his name getting skeletonized and that sort of thing. And the bad results of it, the bad man who uses artifact always comes to a bad end.
Always comes to a bad end, yeah.
It's the way it should be, always be.
My World War II geek in me was like, ooh, when the plane, I was like, a Heinkel 111, which is a real German bomber from the Battle of Britain. Yeah.
And I was expecting Indy to make a crack about, another German plane, like the flying wing from the original.
Flying wing, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't do that one. But yeah, they end up at the Siege of Syracuse, which is a real thing, 214 BC. And one of the other plot holes here is that Heinkel, some part of it would survive 2,000 years. Like,
yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
But nobody's ever dug up an old part of a Nazi plane from 2,000 years ago.
It's a cool like opening for a story or like a movie
Yes.
or something. That's almost like the opening of Close Encounters where they find the plane.
Flight 19?
Yeah, Flight 19. Yeah.
Yes. If they found this old rusted out bit of the plane with the Nazi symbol on it or something, riveted wing bit in a dig in Syracuse, that would be really wild. I love seeing that all of Archimedes' devices been in use, whether it was the solar focusers or the claws and stuff. That was great. Nice to see.
That Battle of Syracuse was amazing. And I really loved it because I wondered how they were going to do something new. We got the train, we got the flight, the airplane. You need something new for him to have this big battle and adventure. And so when they went there and we got to see it with the ships and the claws and the mirrors, and the spears kept coming up, we got to shoot that dragon. That was where I finally really sat up and was like, okay, now it's something new and exciting. Everything else is giving you nostalgia. And we're in Morocco. It feels very much. No, this was exciting.
This was new, all new. You've never seen anything like it. I kept wondering, why are they flying so low? Like, you're a plane. Go up a little, out of range of the spears. Get up. Like, you knew it was not going to end well if they didn't get out of the way of those ballista or whatever the Romans called them, is shooting at the plane. But yeah, I agree. I loved that this was different from anything they'd done before. And it was a whole new thing that Indy got to experience. I thought that was great.
Also, what was the purpose of, so when Teddy hijacks the other plane, why is there a guy sleeping in the back? And what was his purpose? That was never explained.
Yeah,
to fly them home, to land safely so they could get back on that plane and they'd had a pilot to take them home.
Gotcha.
Because remember, Teddy had just picked it up from the American flyers in the bar, teaching him how to do things, but he'd never actually sat in front of a real plane. So yes, he could take off and yes, he could get there, but how are they going to even reasonably explain how this kid who's never flown before lands this plane and saves them?
Right.
Okay,
right.
that makes sense.
You got to stick the guy in the back.
Okay.
The plane's owner or the pilot who's sleeping before a flight or something, like I could buy that, but yeah, that plane has to be there to fly them back. What was it? Helena calls it Archimedes' forced deck to bring help from the future, because that whole we got the, what do you call it, the premonition of this whole idea when she was doing the card tricks earlier, talking about the forced deck, and the illusionist forces you to take the card you want. And she said, so the Antikythera was sent through time, forward in time, through the passage of time, by Archimedes to eventually bring someone back from the future, which is an interesting idea. Because he knew it would work because it had happened.
Right. That kind of causality loop.
Right.
Of time travel.
Now, it's a different Antikythera, right? That he's got the original on his desk when the plane comes through. So we don't have the loop of picking it up from the plane and handing it off to the future. You know what I mean?
Right.
That would be weird. Like, nobody invented it. It's its own thing. That would be weird. I've seen movies do that, but I'm glad they didn't do it here. Yeah. So I did like that. I did that aspect. And I also liked Indy's impulse to stay. We saw him teaching the class. He knows about this era. He knows everything about it. And I can be part of history. This is a suitable way for an archaeologist like me to end his days in the past, because I've lived in the past my whole life, in a sense, his whole career.
It's every archaeologist's dream to be able to live in to see and witness the things that they've studied only secondhand.
Didn't he say something like that in the beginning, that archaeology is about finding fact, not truth? And what better than to go back in time and actually see facts? because everything is a speculation. We're always reading what other people have written. So it's always tainted by their eyewitness or their perspective or where they are in context of the event that's happening. But to be able to go back and witness it with your own eyes and make your own experience. For Indiana, he can't stay back there because it's also telling us we can't live our lives in the past. We can't stay mired in the past. We have to get knocked out by our goddaughter, dragged onto a plane and brought back to the future so we can face the future. And the future is, he wants to die right there in Syracuse in the past.
Yes.
That he has loved so much. And she's, no, you're going to come back because there's something waiting for you here. And you're going to have a nice, quiet retirement and death.
And the thing was, too, I was emotionally preparing myself through this sequence for his death. And also thinking, I'm like, this is James Mangold, and he killed off Logan in a very powerful way. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I'm getting ready. And then it's undercut when he's punched out. And I was like, brilliant. Great.
And you're right, Shelly, too, that he has a future. He doesn't think he has a future. He has a future. He has a destiny with Marion. And that dial is sending him to his future destiny with Marion. He has a future. He wants to despair and give up, but he can't give up. He has to look forward because there's more to this life. Even at the very end, there's always more. There's always something better, which I think is a great message and a great way to end the Indiana Jones series of movies. So fantastic. Anything else? Any other notes that you want to share before we wrap up? Because it's the end of the movie. But Shelly, I'm sure you have some more that you've been saving up.
I've been trying to find it. It's all over the place in my notes. But I was just thinking that Helena gave a little foreshadowing to that she would bring Indiana back because she told him when they were on the boat with Rennie, who was being killed, that she doesn't believe in a noble death.
Right.
So there was just that little moment. But there were just so many really good moments in this movie. Just some great lines. Come back to me in a second.
How about you, Thomas? Any other notes on this one?
I thought it was funny that while Indy is being kidnapped in the middle of the ticker tape parade, they run into an anti-Vietnam protest. And Indy starts chanting with everybody, hell no, we won't go. And does a scene and stuff. I thought that was rather humorous. And I don't know how he got that horse to play chicken with a subway train without the animal bolting in terror. It's not a motorcycle. It won't just go where you want.
Yeah, that was good.
My only other thought is, Lucasfilm, please don't make another one. I think this was a fine note to end the series on.
I agree. I do want to mention an exchange between Helena and Indiana that was good in the bar. Was it in the bar? Oh, no, different. He's saying, I forget where this was, but he's saying to her, I have the recorded. I'm thinking about what the hell I'm doing up here, 40 feet in the air with crab shoulders. Oh, when they're climbing the wall, crumbling vertebrae, a plate in one leg, screws in the other. And she says, yeah, I get it. He goes, no, you don't get it. You're half my age. You haven't been forced to drink the blood of Kali. No, fair enough. Or been tortured with voodoo. And I'm just guessing, but I don't think you've been shot 9 times, including once by your father. And she says, Dad shot you? And when he means his own father. Oh, no, actually, her father did shoot him on the train. Yeah, in the train. It's right. By accident. Yeah, that was a fun exchange there, too.
That was great. You almost wondered, is that Harrison Ford saying that line or is that Indiana Jones saying that line?
He's seen a lot too, yes.
There's just one last thing I want to put in here, and that was how much I enjoyed that they spoke in the language of where they were and used subtitles instead of using the old trick where you say the line first and then you automatically just switch to English.
Yes.
When they were speaking German on the train. They were speaking German the whole time. And again, at the end, when they were speaking, I guess it was Greek. I hate to say I don't know. I assume it's Greek. That they were speaking Greek in Syracuse. And that was just lovely. I really appreciated that from the people who made the movie.
It was funny at one point in the first sequence with the Germans, they were translating, subtitling everything. And at one point, the German officers are like walking outside and it just says speaking in German. Like it doesn't really matter what they're saying. Just don't worry about it. Okay. Any German speakers here want to tell us what they actually said?
Jawohl.
So it was funny. All right, so that should do it for our discussion, and in the end of our discussion of the Indiana Jones franchise, how wonderful it was. Well, maybe we'll come back and do Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. Who knows?
Is that on Disney Plus, by the way?
That is a good question.
They should do that because I haven't seen them.
Or on Paramount Plus or something, because somebody owns it. Anyway, for now, that's it. We'd like to, as we wrap up, take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of movies and TV shows, including Carlos G, Robert N, AJ M, Dylan A, and Dan M. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of movies and TV shows and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So we'd love to hear what you think of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Did it live up to the hype? Did it fail like all the internet critics said it would? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/secrets or the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuest Media, sending an email to secrets@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. Until next time, Shelly Kelly, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
It's been a pleasure, Dom.
Thomas Salerno, thank you as well.
Thank you so much, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the secrets of movies and TV shows on StarQuest. Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy, Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. Find the show wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/mysterious. We'd like to thank Patrick McCaffrey of Moonshadow Studios for editing this episode. To have your audio edited professionally and with care, check out more of Patrick's work at moonshadowstudios.biz. That's moonshadowstudios.biz.